Okay, so you guys have been asking me so many questions about the new Dawning 2021 armor, and today I'm going to try to answer all of those. So the main three things that I'm going to judge these sets by is going to be the ease of use, the appeal, and is it a must-have armor piece. I'm going to be showing you what good shaders you can use on this armor, and I'm also going to be making a quick and rough build with all three of these sets, that way I can get your creative gears turning. And if all of that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and leave a like on this video if you end up enjoying it, hit that subscribe button or else I will literally send little tiny elves to go and break your knees this Christmas. And go ahead and click on that link down below to join my Discord server, that way you can show me anything cool that you make with these armor sets. I will also be leaving skip links down below, that way you can just skip around to whatever section you want, in case you just want to hear me talk about the recommended shaders, or you just want to get to my builds. Okay, so first let's talk about my first impressions on all of the armor, and they're pretty good. I really like these. They are very intricate, they have a lot of detail to them, and they just look absolutely badass. And the one thing I really like about them is that the glow on them is very tasteful. It's not like the solstice gear where the glow is just everywhere. It's very evenly spread out and there's not a lot of it, and the glow is used to really highlight all of the details on each of the three sets. And very quickly, I'm going to apply Gambit Emerald to all three of these sets. One, so that way I can show you which parts of these glow, and two, I want to show you that every part of this armor is going to take shaders pretty well, so you don't have to worry about one piece that just stays the same color and ruins your whole entire build. The other thing I wanted to show you with this is with the Hunter and the Titan, for some reason those glow a lot brighter than most of the Warlock set. The Bond and the horns are still pretty bright, but I have no idea why the rest of it is so subdued, so that is something to take into consideration. And next up, I'm going to be showing you 4 different shaders for you to try with this set. Now they all have something in common, and that is contrast. So these are going to have a black or dark color underneath, and then all of the really intricate details are going to be in white. The reason that's important to me is because those details that I'm talking about are very dynamic. They make the sets very exciting, and they make the sets look like they're in motion. And these shaders are not going to be the only shaders that look good with these. In fact, a lot of shaders look really good with these armor pieces. I will give you one piece of advice though, try to stick to simple shaders, so 2 tones or even 3. That way you can highlight the right pieces of this armor and you can keep them looking like they're in motion and keep them looking exciting. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go over them individually, and let's talk about which of the individual pieces of every set are going to be used the most. So the head, I think, is going to be the most useful part of this set. It works with a whole lot of chest plates and a whole lot of armor pieces, although I will give you the small tip of the fact that you should use shoulder pads that have very sharp edges to them, like for example the Lucian Knight stuff. The next armor pieces that I think are going to be used the most are either going to be the chest or the leg armor. It really depends on what armor you have available to you currently, but as far as the mark goes and the arms, they are a little bit harder to use if you don't have any of the past Dawning armor. So now we're on to my Hunter, and what I think is going to be used the most is actually going to be a tie between the chest plate or the leg armor, and I even think that people are going to try to use them together a whole lot. So reason being is both of these look really good with some shaders, and of course they blend very well with heavily armored pieces. And from there, I think people are going to move on to the helmet, because the helmet is actually pretty freaking cool. I really like how with most shaders, it kind of just hides the visor, and there's a little V pattern at the top that looks really freaking cool, and I feel like people are actually going to use this helmet to make some superheroes. And the 2 tough ones to work with are going to be the arms and the cloak. Unless you have the Dawning stuff, I couldn't really find any armor pieces that fit with this. Of course, I can always be wrong, and by all means go to my Discord server and prove me wrong, but I couldn't really find a use for the arms and the cloak at all. And don't get me wrong, I really like this armor and I really like the arms and the cloak. It's just that, especially for new players, I can't really recommend these two pieces because there's not a lot of armor that really matches with that unless you have the rest of the Dawning armor. Although if you are planning on using that cloak and maybe the arms, I will recommend that you try out the Pyrrhic Ascent armor, so the new Trials armor that we have currently. Okay, and now we're on to the Warlock, and the most exciting one in my opinion. I have never been so tempted to just rock one full set of armor until today. This armor is definitely worth the money, so spoiler alert for the end. So with all of that in mind, I think it's going to be a tie between the helmet and the robes as far as what's going to be used the most together. And while this armor set, or really any piece of this armor set, isn't going to be hard to work with, you will definitely still have to work with it, if you know what I mean. Like for example, if you end up using the robes, you're going to want to use a really pointy helmet, something with like a lot of horns to it, or just something that's really tall. And as far as the helmet goes, you're really going to have to look for robes that are also pointy, something that has some pointy shoulders to it, something that just looks kind of evil in general to match the helmet. As far as everything else go, the gloves are pretty neat and could fit together with a lot of knight builds, as well as the legs. The bond is kind of what I like to call interchangeable. You won't really miss not having this bond because you could use a lot of other bonds in its place. And now let's go ahead and move on to what I created with this armor to help give you some ideas and get those creative gears turning. Okay, so I wanted to start this off by putting on Crucible Redjack since I did like it so much whenever I was testing out shaders. And from there, I kind of wanted to start off with something like the Lucian Knight stuff from the past Dawning event, since all of the Dawning armor is a good starting point for a good build with this set. And what I was trying to achieve here with putting on the Lucian Knight gauntlets and the legs is I really wanted to follow the lead of the helmet. The helmet itself is very pointy and there's some curviness to it. So both of the Lucian Knight pieces I added on kind of help match that same energy. In the background, you can also see that I'm kind of just staring at the knee pads on the Lucian Knight stuff. And I remembered that the Empyrean Cartographer has a very big chest plate that just kind of comes down to a point, and when you put it to the side like this, you can see how well that matches together. And while I did plan on keeping the mark the same, I ended up changing it to the Northlight bond and then later to the Phenotype bond, because I was really trying to find something that matched the sharpness of the rest of the set. The Northlight thing kind of comes down to a point in the back, but I found out that it still didn't really fit the bill, especially with that gold on the cloth. And that's why I ended up going with the Phenotype Plasticity bond, just because that edge does really match all of these sharp bits on my armor. So that's what really ended up tying the whole thing together. And I know the set isn't perfect. I know that I could probably use a different armor piece or maybe some different shaders here and there, but I really wanted to show you what you can possibly create with the set, as well as teach myself the potential of this set. And again, I will remind you at this point, if you want to show me any of your builds, I do have a fashion channel in my Discord server, so click that link down below to join up. That way you can show me some of the stuff that you made. But now let's go ahead and see what I created on my Hunter. So on my Hunter, I actually go by a lot quicker here. So I really wanted to use Omnichronia because at first I did want to try to build a heavily armored Hunter. But what I ended up finding out was that I maybe preferred something that was a little bit more 50-50, which is why I ended up using the Lux Gloves and the Righteous Strides, especially the Righteous Strides, because one, they are a very good 50-50 split between armor and cloth here, and I ended up adding in the Solstice Cloak as well because this is purely cloth, and there was already a whole lot of armor going on in the upper body area. So even though this build went by really quick, it actually took me about 30 freaking minutes to really sift through all of the armor and really see what I wanted to use in this set, because I didn't really have as much armor as I did on my Titan and my Warlock. So I had to be a lot more selective, and I definitely had to crutch on a lot of very popular armor pieces like the Lux sleeves, for example. And actually that's going to be a win-win because one, you can probably make something cooler than me, and two, for the newer players of Destiny that are just trying to get into fashion, I think that this is going to be a good representation of what we're going to see in this set, where people are going to try to stick to the easier to use things like the helmet or the chest plate. But even though it was a little bit tougher to work with, I still really like this set. And like I've said before, it's definitely going to be one of those sets that you just hang on to for the future, because somewhere down the line, someone is going to make something really cool with this. I just know it. Okay, so now we move on to my Warlock, and you're immediately going to see here that I'm putting on Nezrek Sin, because earlier I did say that you have to use tall helmets, you have to use helmets that are spiky, just something to help counter the spikes on the robes. I went ahead and I put on the Midnight Smith shader just because I really wanted this Warlock to look sinister, evil, or like a dark wizard, so that's why I started off with that. And as you can see here, I put on the Triceratops Bond because of those claws. Those claws kind of look like spikes and help feed into that like evil theme. I also put on the Corrupting Echo gloves because what better to use for an evil theme than the Thorn armor. So on this part I put on the Street Scholar pants because they have like belts to them and some straps, and I thought that that was very edgy, which matches the theme because it does give me like a vampire vibe. And on this part I went through different black and red shaders to kind of hide the red on the arms a lot more. I didn't like the type of red that showed up there. It was a little bit brighter than the rest of the set. And same thing with the legs here. I actually put on Crucible Red Jack because I thought there was a little bit too much red here. And not only that, Crucible Red Jack helped highlight all of these straps and the belts on the legs to further express that like vampirish, sinister, and evil theme. And yeah, that's my Warlock. If you like edgy Warlocks or like dark mages, you are definitely going to find a very good home in the Dendrite armor. You won't regret getting it. And lastly, let's bring up the criteria that we talked about at the beginning of the video. So that's going to be the appeal, the ease of use, and the must-have. As far as appeal goes, everybody is going to love these sets. These are really cool, and I think if you manage to make something with them, you will definitely turn some heads. So I think I'm going to put all three of them at like a 9 out of 10, and people as time goes by are going to want these sets a lot more, especially depending on what you create with them and depending on how many armor pieces you have available to you that match this armor. So speaking of that, the ease of use. Now this is where these sets start to lose some points, and I'm going to actually separate this out into two separate columns. So the ease of use for new players is going to be a lot harder, especially if you're trying to mix and match a ton of armor pieces with it. You're not going to have the dawning sets available to you or any of the older armor pieces that we have. So for new players, I will put the ease of use at like a 5 out of 10 depending on how many of the armor pieces you decide to use. And for veteran players that have the past dawning armor sets and might have a bunch of the raid armor, I would probably put this at like a 7 or a 6 depending on how much experience and how many armor pieces you have. So please keep in mind the amount of armor that you have when purchasing this set, and also something to take into consideration: if you are going to be playing this game for a good amount of time, I still do think that these armor pieces are a worthwhile investment. And that's actually going to lead me into the must-have. So let me talk about Instagram and Twitter real quick. So I upload to both of those daily, and I've been uploading for almost 2 years now. So I know what armor sets people ask about and what armor sets people are impressed by. A lot of those armor sets are the dawning armors from like the past years. So while you probably won't have a lot of armor to go with this now, later on whenever you start to get more armor, and later on whenever these sets become older, a lot of people are going to be asking you about your armor in the future. So I think that these sets are a worthwhile investment, and I do think that they are a must-have. People are definitely going to regret not having these armors. And look, if you really only have a couple of guardians, you don't necessarily have all three, by all means just go ahead and buy the one that you main. Don't really go out of your way to try to buy any of the other classes, and then you're not going to end up using them. But if you do have 3 guardians and you don't know which one to get, and you can only get one because of your limited bright dust or silver, I think that you will be the happiest with the Warlock set. I have never been so tempted to like only rock one full set of armor. As a fashion guru, that is basically like a sin. But I will definitely go around and recommend this set to people that don't necessarily care about fashion a lot. I think that this Warlock set has a very strong appeal to it. And if you are a definite Warlock main, don't even second guess yourself, just get the armor. And if I had to like rank them and put them up against each other, I would put the Warlock at the top, the Titan in second place, and finally the Hunter in last place. But that can change depending on the person, so go ahead and leave me a comment down below with your thoughts on what I just said. And I really mean it, go ahead and leave me your thoughts down below. Let me know if you think that I'm wrong in the nicest way possible. Please don't be mean, by the way. But yeah, fashion is very subjective, so my opinion can be very different from yours, and I want your opinion to be heard. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like on it because it took a lot of hard work, especially on my voice because it is definitely dying. Also, go ahead and subscribe because I will be making more reviews very soon. The Thorn armor set should be next. And lastly, I will tell you one more time to click on the link below to join my Discord server because you could end up in one of my videos like you're seeing here in the background. These are some of the guardians that I like that were created during the time that I've been making this video. As always, thank you so much to my Patreon members. I literally could not have made this video without you. Guardians, go ahead and click on any of the videos popping up in your end card now. And as always, stay beautiful.